Let's talk about Xbox Series X specs upgrade and next generation of Xbox platform. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I'm sure you've heard about that leak about PlayStation 5 Pro being in development by Tom Henderson of Insider Gaming. Now, Tom is a very reliable source of that kind of information really, and looks like PlayStation, or should I say Sony, is working on both PlayStation 5 Slim and PlayStation 5 Pro, which makes sense, and sounds like the Slim model we will get this year, and we may get PlayStation 5 Pro next year. So obviously that started the whole conversation about whether or not we actually need next generation, or should I say mid-gen upgrades in a console space and stuff. Now I'm all for it, right? Like you know me. I mean, most of you know me from my previous videos. I've been always a big proponent of console upgrades. I don't necessarily like waiting on the next generation like 5, 6, 7, 8 years or so, right? So like just the idea of me waiting for another console next 6 years is not really a pleasant one. And to be honest with you, I think that market is actually changing also, and we need to take that into consideration, that things will not be the same anymore with cloud gaming and other like PC gaming also growing, and etc. etc. But anyway, so the real question is, will Microsoft, let's assume that PlayStation 5 Pro is real and will release next year. The question now becomes, will Microsoft do something about it? Will they release more powerful hardware? Now, I don't really know, although Tom Henderson in one of his tweets did say that he would not be surprised if Xbox didn't actually work on his machine too. And I'm sure they do, because like I remember even Phil Spencer when they were releasing, actually before the launch of Xbox One X, he did say that they had like 2 or 3 prototypes with a different specs, and they were not sure which one to pursue. And so they had more PlayStation 4 Pro like Xbox, so just a little bit more powerful. And they had that Xbox One X way more powerful version of the console, and they went with a second one. It took them longer; they had to wait for some of the technology, but they went with that. So I would not be surprised if Microsoft just kept working on different, prototypes, because they just play with different specs, machines, graphics cards, CPUs, whatever, right? And then at some point they make the decision, okay, let's go with this particular prototype because actually it makes sense, because this and that technology will be available like 2 years from now, right? I would imagine that that's the way it works. So I think that it's possible that Microsoft could actually do that, and it would actually make sense, really, and that would make sense for many reasons. Although I think that it would not go well with developers, because if you actually think about PlayStation 5 Pro, that would be adding just one more console to this generation, right? So they would have to develop games for PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 Pro. Although with PlayStation 5 Pro, that would be just enhanced version of the same game. Not really a huge problem, I would imagine, right? Obviously, the same goes for Xbox Series consoles and any potential upgrades in the future. And it would just feel like with PC games, I guess. But still, development would not really change, but that, adding another SKU for developers to work with is just like more time in QA, because when it comes to consoles, they actually have to test everything even more than on PC. On PC, obviously, they still have to test and check if everything works and stuff, right? but I guess like there's more work when it comes to QAing, console ports, right? So that would mean more work for the developers. Actually, that would be more work for both the developers on PlayStation and Xbox side. However you look at it. So that would be one of those, well, not really disadvantages. It's just like more work for developers. So obviously they would not necessarily be happy about it. But at the same time, it would make sense for gamers because we would get more choice. It would make sense for some games to actually utilize like ray tracing with better specs and that kind of stuff. And also it would make sense for cloud. And this is actually the strongest argument for Microsoft to pursue a better version of Xbox in the future, because basically right now what they do is that they can, they've got Xbox Series X blades in the servers, right? So what they do is that they only put Xbox Series X servers there, and thanks to these servers, they can spin like 2 or 3 instances of Xbox Series S versions of games. I think that's what they said, right? And it kind of makes sense really, because 4 teraflops, 12 teraflops, 3 times more. So I guess that would work. I think that's the case. But obviously you're still using the same technology. So Xbox Series X blades draw the X amount of power, for example, right? And in server racks, power and power draw is very important. It's actually more important than performance sometimes, because it costs money. Because game console developers don't necessarily care about power draw when it comes to consoles and how much console draw power from the socket, because they're not going to be paying for electricity, right? It's on you. Now, obviously, they care about it from like technical perspective, because they cannot overheat the console, etc., etc. The more electricity you draw, the console draw, the hotter it gets. The bigger cooling system you have to install. So I'm being a little bit ignorant saying that they don't care. They do care from design perspective, but they don't care about like the cost of you paying for electricity, right? However, they do care about cost of electricity and how much it costs to actually power all these machines when it comes to servers. And basically it actually makes sense to produce like smaller chips and basically bigger, I guess. Okay, so not smaller, but obviously they would be bigger, but they would be more efficient, and they would be able to spin more like Xbox Series S versions of these games, making that more cost efficient for Microsoft. So that actually makes a lot of sense for Xbox to actually go with these consoles. And also what it would do, that they would improve availability for Xbox Series S, X on the market, because right now what's happening is and I think that's one of the reasons why Xbox Series X is still quite difficult to get. Like there's way more Xbox Series S consoles on the store shelves, and one of the reasons is that really a ton of these chips for these consoles actually go into these server racks. So if they shifted to 5 or 3 nanometers and they would start producing these chips for the more powerful Xbox, they would actually need less of these chips, because one chip would be able, because it would be more powerful, same size probably, in smaller process, but that the same chip would be able to, for example, run twice as many of the Xbox Series S instances of the game on the server rack, right? So same power draw, but way more consumers which you can serve. So that actually makes a lot of sense for Microsoft. And obviously we would benefit as well. That console could potentially be pretty expensive, but hey, it's there. You want to play with that console, you want to play on that console with all the bells and whistles, go ahead. It's all out there, you can play it. So yeah, I think that it makes sense. I think that at some point in the future we will actually get that. I was to talk about next generation, but I'll probably talk about it in the next video because I don't want to make this video a bit too long. But you know, for Microsoft they do care about the cloud aspect, and I think it's actually one of the most important part of their gaming strategy. So it makes sense for them to actually provide and build a more powerful, more power efficient and chip that will be able to run way more games at the same time in these server clusters, or you know, server racks, right? So guys, that's the video. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks for support. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.